School, for many, the word conjures images of bright yellow buses, lockers slamming shut, and the frantic scribbling of notes. It's supposed to be a place of learning, of friendship, of growth, and sometimes it is. But let's be honest. For a vast and growing number of students, school is something else entirely. It's a place of intense pressure, of crushing boredom, and of rules that often feel more arbitrary than helpful. This isn't just about disliking homework or dreading a pop quiz. This is about a fundamental disconnect between what our schools are designed to do and what students actually need to thrive in a complex, ever-changing world. The bell rings and we're told it's time to learn, but what are we really learning? Beneath the surface of pep rallies and honor rolls, a darker truth often lurks. It's the feeling of your stomach twisting into a knot before a standardized test, not because you don't know the material, but because your entire future feels like it hinges on filling in the right bubbles. It's the exhaustion that seeps into your bones after 8 hours of sitting still, listening to lectures on subjects that feel completely detached from your reality. We are told these are the best years of our lives, but for so many they feel like a dress rehearsal for a play we never auditioned for, a long, drawn-out performance where the main goal is simply to not forget your lines. This experience is so common, so widespread that we've started to accept it as normal, but it's not. And it's important to talk about why. The promise of education is one of the most beautiful promises a society can make to its young people. It's a promise of empowerment, of opportunity, of opening doors to a future filled with possibility. Yet, the system we've built to deliver on that promise often feels more like a factory than a garden. It's a place designed for mass production, for efficiency, for sorting and ranking. Students are moved along an assembly line from one grade to the next, stamped with grades and test scores, all while their individual passions, curiosities, and unique talents are often sanded down to fit a standardized mold. We have to wonder if this system is truly preparing us for the future, or just for more of the same past. So let's pull back the curtain. Let's look past the idealized brochures and the mission statements hanging in the principal's office. This isn't an attack on teachers who are often doing their best within a flawed structure. This is an exploration of the system itself. We're going to dive into the daily struggles, the systemic pressures, and the psychological toll that the modern school experience can take, because understanding the problem is the first step toward imagining a better way. A way that honors the true spirit of learning and, more importantly, honors the students at the heart of it all. The bell is ringing, so let's begin. Imagine a student we'll call Maya. Her alarm goes off at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's still dark outside. She quickly gets ready, grabs a granola bar and rushes to the bus, her backpack already weighing a ton. Her first class is advanced algebra, a subject she struggles with. The teacher moves quickly through the lesson and Maya feels that familiar wave of panic. She's afraid to ask a question and look foolish, so she just nods along, hoping she'll figure it out later, but later is already booked. After algebra comes history, then chemistry, then English, then Spanish. Each class is a 47-minute sprint, a race to absorb information before the bell signals it's time to switch gears completely. There's no time to truly dive into anything that sparks her interest. By lunchtime, Maya is mentally drained. She has about 20 minutes to eat, during which she tries to cram in some studying for the history test she has next period. The cafeteria is loud and chaotic, hardly a place for focus. After lunch, the afternoon classes blur together in a haze of fatigue. The final bell rings at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but her day is far from over. She has soccer practice until 5 o'clock, a commitment she loves, but that also adds to her exhaustion. When she finally gets home, she faces a mountain of homework. A 5-page history reading with questions, 30 algebra problems, a lab report for chemistry, and studying for a Spanish quiz. It feels like an impossible task, a second shift after a full day's work. This isn't a story of a failing student. Maya is a good student. She gets B's and the occasional A, but she feels like she's constantly treading water, just trying to keep her head up. She's not learning in a way that feels meaningful. She's memorizing. She's regurgitating information for tests and then promptly forgetting it to make room for the next batch of facts. The joy of discovery, the thrill of a genuine aha moment, has been replaced by the dull, persistent anxiety of just getting by. Her natural curiosity about the world is being systematically extinguished by the relentless pressure to perform, to score, to achieve. Her life has become a checklist and joy isn't on it. Maya's story is not an exception. For millions of students, it is the rule. It is a daily cycle of pressure, exhaustion, and disengagement. Her experience highlights a core problem. Our school system often prioritizes coverage over comprehension and compliance over curiosity. Students are rewarded for sitting still, for following instructions, and for excelling at a very narrow set of academic tasks. This daily grind doesn't just make them tired, it teaches them a dangerous lesson. It teaches them that learning is a chore, that their interests don't matter, and that their worth is measured by a letter or a number on a report card. That is a heavy burden for any young person to carry. Let's break down the architecture of this pressure cooker. I like to think of it as a triple threat to genuine learning, suffocating rules, the tyranny of standardized testing, and the systemic sidelining of creativity. First, the rules. Of course, schools need rules for safety and order, but often the rule book swells to include dictates that seem designed more for control than for creating a positive learning environment. Strict dress codes that police students' bodies, rigid policies about hallway conduct, or zero-tolerance rules that punish minor infractions with severe consequences can make school feel less like a community and more like a low-security prison. When students are constantly worried about breaking a minor rule, it creates an atmosphere of fear, not of intellectual exploration. Then comes the second and perhaps most formidable threat, the obsession with standardized testing. These tests have become the ultimate measure of success for students, teachers, and entire school districts. As a result, the curriculum begins to warp around them. Instead of fostering deep understanding and critical thinking, teachers are pressured to teach to the test. Valuable class time is spent on test-taking strategies, practice drills, and memorizing the specific types of information likely to appear on the exam. Learning becomes a game of beating the test, not of engaging with the material in a meaningful way. Subjects that aren't on the test, like art, music, and even social studies or science in some cases, are given less time and fewer resources. This leads directly to the third threat, the caging of creativity. In a system so focused on rules and standardized outcomes, there is little room for the beautiful, messy process of creative thinking. Creativity thrives on experimentation, on risk-taking, and yes, on failure. But the school system is terrified of failure. A wrong answer on a test is marked in red. A project that doesn't meet the precise rubric gets a low grade. Students quickly learn that the safest path to a good GPA is to follow the instructions, to color inside the lines, and to give the teacher exactly what they expect. This environment actively discourages the very skills that are most valuable in our modern world: innovation, problem solving, and the ability to think outside the box. Together, these three forces create a powerful current that pushes students away from authentic engagement. The strict rules tell them their judgment isn't trusted. The endless testing tells them their worth is a number. And the lack of creative outlets tells them their unique perspective doesn't matter. It's a system that, despite the best intentions of many within it, ends up prioritizing conformity over individuality. It prepares students for a world of assembly lines and rote tasks, a world that, for the most part, no longer exists. The real world demands collaboration, adaptability, and creativity, the very things our schools are often unintentionally designed to suppress. All of this pressure, this grind, this systemic squeeze, it doesn't just disappear when the final bell rings. Students carry it home with them, an invisible backpack filled with anxiety, stress, and self-doubt. The consequences for their mental health are profound and increasingly well documented. Rates of anxiety and depression among adolescents have skyrocketed. And while many factors contribute to this, the high-stakes, high-stress environment of modern schooling is undeniably a major one. The constant fear of not measuring up, of falling behind, of disappointing parents and teachers creates a chronic state of stress that is detrimental to both the developing brain and the human spirit. It is, honestly, a silent crisis happening in hallways and classrooms every single day. This relentless pressure also performs a slow and tragic assassination of curiosity. Children are born as learning machines. They are endlessly curious, constantly asking why, and exploring the world with a sense of wonder. They want to understand things, but years of being told what to learn, how to learn it, and that the only thing that matters is the grade changes things. The system teaches them that their own questions are irrelevant distractions from the curriculum. The joy of discovery is replaced by the anxiety of performance. Learning, which should be an adventure, becomes a chore. The question is no longer, what's interesting about this, but will this be on the test? Consider the impact this has on a student's sense of self. When your days are filled with tasks you find meaningless, and your success is measured by metrics that don't reflect your true interests or talents, it's easy to become disengaged. This isn't laziness. It's a perfectly logical human response to an environment that feels alienating. Students who are brilliant artists, natural leaders, or gifted mechanics may be labeled as average or poor students simply because their skills don't align with the narrow definition of academic success. This can lead to a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy, a belief that they are not smart, when in reality they are just smart in a way the system refuses to recognize or value. This erosion of mental well-being and intellectual curiosity has long-term consequences. It creates a generation of young adults who are burned out before they even enter the workforce. They may have a diploma and a high GPA, but they lack a genuine passion for lifelong learning. They've been trained to seek external validation, the good grade, the approval of authority, rather than to pursue their own intrinsic interests. We are in effect teaching them to be excellent employees for a factory that closed down decades ago, instead of preparing them to be the adaptable, creative and resilient thinkers we so desperately need. The cost is immeasurable, not just for the students themselves, but for society as a whole. So the system is flawed. What do we do? Waving a magic wand isn't an option, but despair isn't either. There are real, tangible steps we can take to reimagine the classroom and make school a place of genuine growth and joy. First, we need to rethink our relationship with assessment. This doesn't mean no tests ever, but it does mean moving away from the tyranny of high-stakes, standardized tests. Schools could embrace portfolio-based assessments where students compile their best work over time. They could use project-based learning, where students engage in long-term interdisciplinary projects that solve real-world problems. The goal should be to measure what students can do with their knowledge, not just what they can memorize. Next, we must deliberately carve out space for creativity and curiosity. This could be as simple as incorporating more unstructured creative time into the school day, or as ambitious as redesigning curricula to be more inquiry-based. Imagine a history class that, instead of just memorizing dates, tasks students with creating a documentary about a local historical event, or a science class that spends a semester designing and building a sustainable garden for the school. By giving students more agency over what and how they learn, we reignite their natural desire to explore and understand. We need to trust that students, when given the chance, will pursue learning with passion. Furthermore, we must prioritize student well-being as much as we prioritize academic achievement. This means investing in mental health resources, like having more counselors and school psychologists available. It means teaching skills like mindfulness, emotional regulation, and stress management as part of the core curriculum. Schools could also implement later start times for high schoolers to align with their natural sleep cycles, a change that has been proven to improve both mental health and academic performance. A student who is healthy, rested, and emotionally supported is a student who is ready and able to learn. This isn't a soft skill, it's the fundamental foundation for all learning. Finally, we must remember that change is possible and that students themselves have a voice in this conversation. The most profound and lasting improvements will come when we listen to the people who are actually living the school experience every day. Students can and should advocate for the changes they want to see, whether it's through student government, speaking at school board meetings, or simply starting conversations with their teachers and administrators. The path to a better school system isn't a top-down mandate, it's a collaborative effort. It's about building a community of learning that is more humane, more engaging, and more worthy of the incredible potential that exists within every single student.